Last night's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Alive didn't just stir the pot. It knocked it off the stove and lit the whole set on fire. Before we dive in, please like and subscribe and make sure to stay till the end. What started as a standard political interview spiraled into one of the most shocking on-air confrontations late-night TV has ever seen. Viewers weren't just surprised, they were stunned. Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary, ever stepped onto the stage with the confidence of someone who knew she was walking straight into enemy territory. Wearing a razor-sharp blue suit and a calm but determined smile, she waved at the crowd. Cheers erupted, but so did boos. The room was already split, and the fireworks hadn't even started. She had come prepared, ready to talk policies, defend the administration, and hold her ground. But what she didn't expect was how fast things would spiral out of control. Jimmy Kimmel, known for his sharp humor, started things light. He introduced her with a smile, and she responded graciously. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Happy to be here." At first, the interview was steady. They touched on safe topics like gas prices, student loans, and the economy. Karoline answered with the calm, composed tone of someone used to standing at the White House podium. Her words were clear, direct, and carefully measured, but you could feel the tension building by the second, and then the bomb dropped. Kimmel leaned forward with a smirk and asked, "Do you actually believe the stuff you say at those press briefings? Or is it all just acting?" The audience howled with laughter, but Karoline didn't flinch. She kept her smile tight and answered, "I speak for the president and the American people. I share facts, even if the media chooses to ignore them." The room grew quieter. Some clapped. Some didn't know what to do. The tension in the air suddenly felt heavy. Jimmy shot back, raising an eyebrow. "Facts? That's a bold word in Washington." A few nervous laughs bubbled out from the crowd, but it wasn't the same kind of laughter as before. Something had changed. Something had shifted. Karoline's tone sharpened. "It's easy to make jokes about politics when you don't have to lead." She snapped. "Maybe that's why you're behind a desk, and I'm at the White House podium." That one hit hard. The audience gasped. A few people stood and clapped while others booed even louder. "Please like and subscribe. Let's continue." The vibe had flipped completely. Jimmy's face stiffened. He laughed, but the sparkle was gone from his eyes. "Okay," he said, trying to recover. "But let's be honest, your administration is struggling. The economy is shaky. The border's a mess. Your boss's approval ratings are in free fall." Karoline didn't miss a beat. "Criticism is part of the job. But what do you offer?" Jimmy jokes, memes, sarcastic monologues. The American people deserve better than cheap shots from a Hollywood stage. The audience was stunned. People were recording with their phones. Producers backstage were whispering frantically into their headsets, "Please like and subscribe. Let's continue." Then Jimmy turned up the heat even more. He played a clip behind them on a giant screen. A video from one of Karoline's past press briefings where she hesitated while answering a tough question about inflation. The clip zoomed in on her face, catching an awkward pause and a smirking reporter in the front row. The crowd roared with laughter. But Karoline didn't even blink. "That's your big moment," she said coolly, a 5-second clip taken out of context. "Maybe you should apply for a job at CNN." That one landed like a thunderclap. Half the room erupted in laughter and cheers, while the other half looked stunned. The temperature in the studio had officially hit boiling. Jimmy leaned in, visibly annoyed. "Now, you always talk about context," he said. "So, what's the context for misleading people? What's the context for defending chaos?" The tension was unbearable. Karoline didn't back down an inch. "The context is this," she said, locking eyes with him. "Your show survives by keeping people angry and divided. You don't want answers. You want outrage. I came here to talk about policy, but you came here to win points and stir drama." Phones were up. The audience wasn't just watching a late-night interview anymore. They were witnessing a live political explosion on national television. A producer was overheard saying, "Should we cut to commercial?" But the director reportedly answered, "No, let it roll. This is gold." Karoline turned toward the crowd. "You don't have to agree with me," she said. "But don't let late-night comedians decide what's true. They're here to entertain you, not inform you." The room erupted into a mixture of applause and shouts. It was beat 'em. Jimmy cut in, raising a hand. "Let me stop you right there," he said sharply. "If anyone's deciding what's true, it's the press secretary dodging every real question." The crowd gasped again. Karoline snapped back without missing a beat. Maybe if reporters asked real questions, I wouldn't have to dodge anything. The back and forth was no longer playful. It was a verbal war, and the crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. The room fell into a strange, tense silence. All eyes were on Karoline as she leaned in, her voice calm but cutting through the noise like a blade. "Let's actually talk about facts, Jimmy," she said. "You talk about misinformation, but how many times have you twisted something on this show for laughs?" Gas echoed from the audience. Even some of the camera crew shifted uncomfortably. Jimmy blinked, caught off guard. "I'm a comedian," he said, trying to keep his voice level. "People come here for jokes, not a lecture." But Karoline didn't even flinch. She stepped right into the moment, refusing to back down. "And I'm the press secretary," she responded coolly. "I don't get a laugh track when I share policy. I stand in front of a room full of journalists and answer hard questions day after day. You have the luxury of hiding behind a script. I don't," the audience murmured. Some people looked shocked. Others stared at Karoline like they were seeing her for the first time. Even Jimmy's usual crowd seemed unsure how to react to this version of her, sharp, confident, and absolutely refusing to be steamrolled. "Please like and subscribe. Let's continue." Then Jimmy dropped the jokes altogether. The smile was gone. He stared straight at Karoline and asked, "Do you really believe you're helping people? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like all you do is spin for a president who can barely put a sentence together." The studio went absolutely silent. "Please like and subscribe. Let's continue." Karoline's jaw tightened, but she didn't raise her voice. "Say what you want about the president," she said. "But at least he's not sitting behind a desk throwing cheap insults to get applause. Leadership is hard. Mocking it from a distance is easy." And just like that, the entire room shifted again. You could feel the air leave the studio. Even Jimmy looked like he wasn't sure where to go next. This was no longer a segment. It was a standoff live on national TV. "I invited you here for a conversation," Jimmy said finally, his voice edged with frustration, "but clearly you came here for a fight." Karoline stood up slightly in her chair, her voice unwavering. "No, I came here to defend the truth. But if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should stick to celebrity gossip and leave politics to the professionals." Boom. The studio exploded. Some people jumped to their feet and cheered wildly. Others booed louder than ever. Phones were pointed from every angle. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube lit up instantly. Clips of the moment were already spreading like wildfire. A producer backstage was screaming, "Cut to commercial. We have to cut." But the director's voice rang back, "No, let it run. This is history." The cameras kept rolling. And Karoline, she wasn't done yet. She stood up fully, now pulled off her mic and turned to face the stunned audience. "I came here in good faith," she said, raising her voice just enough to carry through the room. "But it's clear Jimmy isn't interested in a real conversation. He wants sound bites and viral moments. I won't be a prop in someone else's game." Jimmy tried to regain control. "Well, that was different," he muttered with a weak smile. But it was too late. The power in the room had shifted entirely. The damage had already been done, and it was all caught on camera as Karoline walked off the stage without looking back. The entire studio was left in shock. The crowd was split. Some applauded her as she left. Others booed, but no one looked away. The tension, the fire, the clash. It was unforgettable. Within minutes, social media exploded. Hashtags like Yak, Karoline Veru, Kimmel, Doc's press secretary, walkout, and late night meltdown were trending across every major platform. Clips of her walkout spread across Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter faster than anyone could keep up. Influencers, political commentators, and celebrities were already reacting. Some praised Karoline for standing her ground. Others mocked her for walking off. But no one was ignoring what happened. The confrontation had become a national headline in a matter of hours by morning. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. Conservative networks hailed her as a brave fighter who stood up to media bullying. Liberal hosts called her overly defensive and accused her of dodging hard questions. The divide wasn't just political, it was cultural. At the next day's press briefing, Karoline returned to her podium as if nothing had happened. She was composed, prepared, and totally unfazed. When a reporter asked if she regretted walking out, she simply smiled and said, "No regrets. I showed up with respect. I left with my dignity." That quote alone made headlines everywhere. The press room fell quiet after she spoke. Then, Without skipping a beat, she moved on to the next question. Confident, calm, and totally in control. That same night, Jimmy returned to his show with a visibly different tone. Not sure if I should thank Karoline for the ratings or apologize to my producers for the heart attack, he joked weakly. The audience laughed, but not as loudly as before something had changed. Producers started whispering about damage control. Some advertisers quietly backed away. One insider even admitted the walkout shook the brand. A few comedians came to Jimmy's defense, but others said privately he should have let her talk. That wasn't comedy, that was cornering someone on camera. In an attempt to take back the narrative, Jimmy finally addressed the backlash in a serious tone. He looked straight into the camera and said, "I've always tried to use this platform to make people laugh and maybe also think, but I realize I crossed a line with Karoline. I was rude. I'm sorry." That clip spread just as fast as the original confrontation. Some fans appreciated the apology. Others said it was too little too late. But Karoline, she responded with a single sentence during her next live stream. That's what grown-ups do. They own their mistakes. And once again, the internet exploded behind the scenes. The White House staff praised her for keeping her cool under fire. Reporters noticed that even her critics had stopped underestimating her. One insider whispered to a journalist, "She just turned a meltdown into a movement, and she did it without shouting." And then came a surprise that no one saw coming. Karoline received a handwritten letter from Oprah Winfrey. It wasn't posted online, but sources say the letter praised Karoline's grace, strength, and composure. Oprah reportedly wrote, "Walking away takes more strength than shouting back. Well done." That moment sealed it. Karoline wasn't just trending. She was making waves that were changing how Americans looked at media politics and public conversations. And it didn't stop there. As the months passed, Karoline's name continued to dominate conversations across newsrooms, classrooms, and comment sections nationwide. What had started as a controversial clash became something deeper, a moment people used to reflect on how we listen, how we speak, and how we treat those with opposing views. She had become more than a press secretary. She became a symbol for speaking boldly in spaces where voices are often silenced. Her presence shook up traditional media and forced even longtime pundits to reconsider the role of comedy and political discourse on college campuses. Students on both sides of the aisle debated her now. Famous walkout professors included the incident in media ethics lectures. Public speaking coaches broke down her delivery and poise. Whether admired or criticized, Karoline was being studied seriously. The most surprising part, Gen Z, often known for their digital activism and quick judgments, didn't cancel her. They clicked follow. Her comments sections were filled with teens and young adults saying things like, "I don't agree with her, but she was real." And that took guts. In one viral moment, a young college student posted a side-by-side video on one side, Karoline calmly walking off stage on the other, a montage of various late-night hosts mocking politicians for cheap laughs. The caption read, "Only one person here acted like an adult." Even comedians started taking note. Some began tweaking their tone, slipping in more thoughtful pauses between jokes. Others doubled down. But even they couldn't ignore that the audience was shifting, laughing less at the cruelty and more at the wit. The landscape had changed behind closed doors. Networks held emergency meetings. Late-night producers reviewed guest vetting procedures. Studio heads discussed ways to avoid another viral walkout. But no matter how they planned, the truth was unavoidable. The power had shifted to the guests who refused to play the game. Please like and subscribe. Let's continue. Meanwhile, Karoline kept moving. She launched a digital platform dedicated to honest civic education. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have celebrity cameos, but it reached millions. Her series, Say It Straight, became a quiet force in American media, offering clear, respectful breakdowns of complex topics. She didn't scream. She didn't insult. She didn't need to. Her calm clarity cut through the noise louder than any punchline. And because of that, people started listening not just to her, but to each other. He never directly addressed the incident again. But fans noticed he never brought another press secretary onto the show, and he never tried to corner another guest. The same way again. The walkout had left its mark not just on Jimmy, but on the industry years later. When journalists looked back at the moment, they didn't call it a meltdown. They called it a reckoning. It was a reminder that civility still has power even in the loudest, messiest, most polarized arenas of modern media. And in Karoline, She never returned to late night. She didn't need to. Her message had outgrown the stage. She had proven that walking away wasn't weakness. It was strength, and that sometimes silence speaks louder than applause. In interviews, she would say that night didn't define me, but it revealed something. People are tired of noise. They're hungry for clarity, and the numbers showed she was right. Her audience didn't just grow. It transformed the confrontation that could have ended her career, launched something bigger. A movement, a message, a moment of clarity in a world full of shouting. And whether you admired her or disagreed with her, one thing was undeniable. Karoline Leavitt. It left the building, but her words stayed long after the lights went out. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.